There you go. Yeah. There you go.
All right. Copy. I'm going to put us up on Instagram, and then we'll be ready to go.
All right.
Yes. It's good usually. Can I dance like Elon to this music?
No, I think you'd have to dislocate your arms to do that. Save, and we're up on all sites, and we're going live on Instagram. And with that, oh, gentlemen, we finally make it.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going straight into the show right here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. It's a special morning. I've been trying to work out audio kinks in the background. And speaking of audio kinks, ladies and gentlemen, Bob Cesca over here and Cliff Schechter, who now have fused shows part of the time. Ne'er shall they're finger cuffing from a media standpoint.
Every Tuesday there's a finger cuff. Yeah.
Finger cuff Tuesdays. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's it. Yeah, it's a bonding exercise. Hold on, I'm making Bob. I can't make him as large as he must be, but I can get him close. Welcome, guys. Sorry for the delay, everybody. Hit that like, share the show, etc., etc., etc. First of all, let's just jump right into why you guys decided to cross the streams.
Oh, no.
As they say, is very dangerous. And
it is.
Yeah.
So what happened was my usual Tuesday co-host, Buzz Burbank, who used to be the news guy on the nationally syndicated Don and Mike show years and years ago. I was his intern in 1993, and we became very good friends. And when my former partner, Ches Pazienza, died in early 2017, Buzz stepped in and started co-hosting the Tuesday episodes of my podcast. And then Buzz decided after the election to finally retire because he'd like to enjoy his life and not be up to his eyeballs in existential dread. And so he stepped down. And because Cliff had been coming on my show every Wednesday, about once a month or so. He was the monthly mailman coming by.
Sure.
Except for no kids, I wasn't providing any kids
Mr. McFeely. He was the Mr. McFeely of the Bob Cesca show.
That's exactly right.
Sure.
Right. And so I decided, hey, why don't we put Cliff on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, and he can be the new Buzz Burbank. And that'll be
Except
perfect.
for nothing like him because he's a talented radio guy. And I'm just some schmuck who just does shit. But that was good enough for Bob.
Yeah. Cliff sucks at talking, right? As everyone can very plainly see. He
all that dead air, good old dead air Schechter, as we call him around these parts.
I may quote you on that one. I didn't say that I'm not.
You can't because you'd have to speak to do it, and it goes against brand. But
I'm just saying I'm not a radio host. Like Buzz was, as Bob used to be an actual radio host. Buzz was a real radio guy. And it was very cool of Bob to ask me to join him because for years we've collaborated on various projects, and I would go on his show, as he said, once a month and whatever. But I also know I know what I don't know. I think that's quoting Donald Rumsfeld or something. I'm not a real radio guy. I live stream. I've been on TV a lot. I go on radio as a guest. I even guest hosted, I think, a few times for Leslie Marshall and a few other people. But I'm not. So that's the only reason why, it was very kind of Bob to ask me. And it just was he was going to go in a slightly different direction because Buzz Burbank was retirement age and knows how radio works. And I'm a little bit younger. I'm not young, don't get me wrong. A little bit younger, and I'm a loudmouth. So here we are.
Plus, he sounds like Bob Odenkirk. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed that Cliff sounds exactly like Bob Odenkirk.
Which is one of the best compliments you could ever pay me in the world.
Right. So occasionally I just say, my Tuesday co-host is Bob Odenkirk.
Sure.
The Bob and Bob
Fantastic.
show.
Who's
on
going to
Tuesday,
know?
yeah.
Even Bob wouldn't be
Right.
sure. Like, do I do a show?
If I can
think
pull
I
up some of
do.
those scams from Better Call Saul, where he gets
Yes.
people to pay for like his $1,500 tequila, I'm all
Yeah.
in.
That's right.
So-
Slippin' Jimmy, baby, slippin' Jimmy.
Flipping Jimmy. Exactly.
So I just went to I did a couple days at CES last week, and amidst like the fires going on and the Trump, sort of these weird Hail Mary flood the zone with bullshit exercises that Trump has been doing. So my brain was jumping from fact to science fiction and back so many times that it was hard to find a landing spot. But the one thing that kept sticking out to me when I was just kind of like macheting my way through the news and the lack of reality around us is that in going through all the things that Trump has suggested over the last little bit, be it Greenland, Panama Canal, making Canada the 51st state, all that kind of shit, the only thing materially he has done that where he put any political weight behind something and actually pushed for it was the elimination of the debt ceiling. He came very close to shutting down the government. He made a distinct choice that this was the hill he was going to die on in relation to this. He almost did, politically. People were, even maggots were screaming about lost political capital and stuff. And it's the irony is the debt ceiling is something that Rachel Maddow did an hour special on how stupid it is 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I've been talking about it forever. It's not even in the Constitution. It
Right.
shouldn't exist. And Obama should have done this when they started using it, because they didn't really use it as the threaten the world leverage like before Obama. But they have during Obama and Biden, and both of them should have just said, "Hi, in our Constitution, we're required to pay off our debts. How about you go fuck yourself? I'm going to sign this right now. We're paying off our debts. This was an accident that came into being during World War I because we were accruing such major debt, but it's not in the Constitution. It doesn't matter if some precedent was formed.
Right.
Like it's an illegal precedent. It shouldn't be there. So
That's right.
so that's what's frustrated me so much about it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. In fact, as you were saying, both of you were saying, eliminating the debt ceiling is something that everyone's been asking for. People have been talking about it. It's an actual issue that's on the table. That other bullshit from his press conference, the thing that struck me is no one was asking for any of that. I didn't hear any debate during the campaign or any discussion, no op-eds, nothing about let's take back the Panama Canal, let's annex Canada, let's take over Greenland from Denmark. No one was asking for this crap. Where does this even come from? And all I can think about is this classic Steve Bannon signal noise thing, where this is just a bunch of noise.
And big oil.
Yeah, the minerals. They got a lot of valuable minerals up there.
And they want to build their little data farms on Greenland too.
Yeah.
The tech pros who want to declare Praxis their own country. I mean, it's such a fucking children's exercise to even talk about what these Broligarch douches want to do, because they're such little fucking emotional children that it's even difficult to discuss. It's so stupid. But that's what they're thinking. We're going to declare independence and have our own cyber state. And it's like, okay, you go play with your little fucking truck in the corner there, and Thomas the Train. And how about you shut the fuck up? Let adults take care of it.
Well, yes, they are children about it. But when you think how close like Peter Thiel is to J.D. Vance and how instructive and direct and how he gets his directives, he gets his directives largely from Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel can't do a podcast without bringing up eugenics. And this idea that they're going to build some sort of Ayn Randian island someplace, that Greenland itself is really just, this all could be something that they've tricked Trump into doing so that they can make sure that there's a more vested U.S. strategic interest and an awareness, so that the Pentagon is directed to protect Greenland, do all this stuff. So if they're going to build something, the Russians can't come over and just snatch it up, kind of like Taiwan Semiconductor, and hold the world hostage in this regard. Also, if you're Elon Musk just opened his big data farm, which is just a cloud storage facility. The idea that it's going to be the biggest AI in the world is just grossly ridiculous, but it's in Memphis, and the reason he built it was because A, land's cheap, B, he doesn't need a lot of workers, and there's a river right there that he can cool the place with. They can divert water from the river through the factory to cool it off. Greenland is freezing.
Tennessee's a solid anti-union state too, is probably worth bringing up.
Right to work stuff. So, but like Greenland's one of those areas where if you put data farms and that kind of stuff up there, or AI facilities and you built a nuclear reactor up there, the water's so cold you could use that as the heat diversion for it, like it's a giant heat sink, like that kind of stuff they're thinking of. And they're worried that they'll build it and then Russia will go boink, at some point. They're not going to, because Russia's done. But
what are the chances Elon Musk is trying to change Donald's mind about the EV mandate coming up? Because it seems like that would be the logical thing for Elon Musk to use his power for, is to protect his own business interests. You know what I mean? Where it's a matter of making sure that Donald Trump doesn't overturn any of Joe Biden's deadlines for switching over to all EV vehicles and lowering emissions and so on. And so he's got a vested interest in that. Why wouldn't he try to use that power to help himself? Even if they made the only mandate be to buy Tesla vehicles, it would be something at least. I'm not necessarily endorsing Tesla in that sense, but why isn't he doing that? Or is he? I don't know.
Right. Well, and the other part he's got is the tariffs, the parts themselves that they assemble Tesla vehicles out of come from China. The Gigafactory is where most of it's done. They slap like 4 pieces on it in Hawthorne, in California. Right. It gets 4 hits with a hammer by a robot or a stranger, and then they call it an American car. It's a little stupid. Yeah. And he's doing everything.
He's owned by China because that is essential to his operation there in Tesla.
Right.
For Tesla. And it also, again, I think the only answer to your question, Bob, is sometimes like when we look at some of the things that Republicans are doing that make absolutely zero sense, is to just accept that they're incredibly stupid and suffer from various forms of mental illness. And I'm not saying that many people suffer from them, but I'm talking about they suffer from the narcissisms and the sociopathy. Because again, just starting a war with people on the left made no sense for a guy who's got EVs.
Right.
He doesn't do anything that makes any sense because he's lost his mind, and he just is angry at people, has a chip on his shoulder, is pissed at his trans kid, needs long sessions with a psychiatrist somewhere to work it out.
That's what his autobiographer has said, is that he, having, followed Elon around and watched him, is that he believes, just in looking at his Twitter feed and speaking to him and the people around him that he talked to during the thing, that he's on kind of like a mental spiral. He's got a lot of, he's admitted mental health issues in the past. He certainly has no qualms about doing every, experimental nootropic brain, alpha brain sample pack that, that Joe Rogan throws his way. And so
ketamine, which is allegedly.
Right. Which is, the mix of those things, just rando throwing those things together is often the problem in guys like this. And nobody's saying no to this guy. Not anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
So because he spent all that money and they know he can spend more on this election. So you're totally right, Bob. That would be in his interest. But, again, like he's doing also, again, maybe whatever money he loses from the EV mandate here, China just tosses in his pocket. They've got so much money. So I don't know, if he loses money, it's kind of like with Twitter. Are they, and I don't know that this is happening. So again, I'm speculating here. But could Russia, China, somebody be paying him enough money that the value he's destroyed in Twitter and the money he's lost, he actually hasn't lost money? It's certainly possible.
I kind of thought that his initial overtures to Donald Trump were all about getting Donald back onto Twitter, because he needed Donald Trump as a personality to drive daily usership on Twitter. Right, to drive traffic to Twitter. And of course, Donald Trump, that's what he does. He's all about look at me, look at me, look at me. Right. I want all the attention. So people, haters and lovers alike, circulate around him. And so I thought when he really became ensconced in the campaign and appeared at that rally and everything, I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe he's making a play to protect Tesla with all of these upcoming EV mandates. And so therefore, it seems even more logical, fast forward a couple of months, to see that Tesla's sales last year were declining. So, he's losing money. He could be losing money with Tesla, and he needs to kind of back that up. So maybe there's something to that. I have this theory, not one that I necessarily agree with. I'm just kind of spitballing ideas, that a lot of these people who are certainly billionaires, genuflecting before Donald Trump, I wonder if there's some sort of manipulation going on, because what we saw in the first time around with Donald Trump was a lot of foreign leaders being effusive with their praise of Donald Trump or pretending to be his friend in order to manipulate him into doing what they want him to do. We saw that with certainly with Xi. We saw that with Kim Jong-un. Vladimir Putin's been doing that for years and years and years.
Bones saw McGee there in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. So, this is not necessarily, again, something that I'm subscribing to as an interpretation, because I think what they're doing is abysmal. But if there is, some sort of positive possibility, maybe they're seeing this as an opportunity. Last time around, we really vocally opposed him and we were pushing back against him at every turn. We were doing things that he didn't like, and we continued to do things. Certainly the Washington Post, and he was, Donald Trump had it out for Amazon during his first term. Maybe this is some way to, kind of buddy up to him, pretend to be his friend, and then start to turn some screws that way. You can catch more flies with honey than you can with shit, or whatever the
Macron's Macron's handshake is kind of the international emblem of that kind of like, we love you, Donald, we love you, and then once you're in the room, do what you got to do. And I think a lot of people caught on to that across the entire political spectrum this time around, because Trump again is now. The Trump of 2025 is not the Trump of 2016 or even 2012 or, the early 2000s. He's a dough-headed old man who's in seek of validation wherever he can find it. So anybody who's nice to him, he'll like, oh, you're my new friend now. He's like that, are you my mother duck that's wandering around in the kid's story. With
Fetterman.
Yes.
Fetterman just in the last 24 hours.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. Fetterman, sorry.
And you saw Donald's reaction to Fetterman, like, he's a really interesting guy. I kind of like him. Now Fetterman is in Donald Trump's head, and Fetterman can kind of use those subtle turns of the dial in order to maybe get some shit from Donald, or to maybe pull him away from doing some of his more radical
How long
things.
before
I don't
we
know,
find?
I'm just spitballing.
Sure. How long will we find before find out that some lip readers get to work on Obama sitting next to Trump in the church for Jimmy Carter's thing, and you see that Obama ultimately said, "It's that debt ceiling, man. You got to get rid of that thing. You're never going to get anything done." That was that's what hangs up everything. I could have gotten so much done. I would have passed like 9 different bills if I'd have gotten rid of that debt ceiling thing, man. And Trump's like, debt ceiling, right? Because
it's rabbit season, duck season, man. Rabbit season, duck season.
I do think that's a lot of it, and I mean, Obama's smart enough to be like, you want to really own the libs? Give everybody, and you want to join with Steve Bannon's populism? Give everyone paid family and medical leave.
Yes.
And then the right wing, the conservatives will lose their minds, and the MAGA populists will.
He was threatening to primary Chip Roy.
I know.
Over the debt ceiling. Like, think about that. Think of a Democratic president. Like everybody would just go, shit, if only, right? If only a Democratic could threaten that kind of make a primary happen on the other side against somebody like Chip Roy, and Trump goes after him. This dude used to be fucking Ted Cruz's training wheels. Here's the thing, though, and you guys know this because I feel like you observe enough of the right-wing thought machine to know this. But every single one of the guys around Trump, from Thiel to Elon Musk to like Matt Gaetz and his crowd, all these folks, they've all read the 48 Laws of Power. They've all they have all decided they are now the Machiavellian ladder climbers all around him.
Yes. They're good Germans, as we would say.
Yeah.
Right.
They realize, kiss his ass, say nice things to him, and it's often said, I mean, he's a goldfish, right? He's in the moment. He says what pops in his head. So you want to be the last one that talked to him before he talks.
Right.
Because he doesn't actually have any core beliefs except for he's superior to everybody else by eugenics. He should have more money than everybody else. He should have sex with anybody he wants, whether they want to or not. I mean, these are his beliefs, is that he should get whatever he wants whenever he wants it. But none of it's ideological. It's all personal.
Yeah, and it's reflective of his ego or his weakness in terms of his ego anyway. So he doesn't even need these things for the thing. It's not like he actually wants to pleasure the woman he's with or be pleasured by the woman he's with. It's more about notching something in case anybody asks, I'm still getting laid. Right?
Yeah.
And that across the board, I think the biggest stress he experienced in the last 4 years was people find out he doesn't have nearly as much money as he said he did. And he knows we now know. Even if maggots are looking the other way, he knows the world knows that he's not anywhere near the level of money that the guys, that Peter Thiel is, that Elon Musk is, that all these guys around him, the real billionaires, Besant, people he's putting in these positions, these guys really do have that kind of money. And he's hoping for a little of it by doing them some favors. But at a certain point, if you're the guy in the room with the least amount of money, you owe everybody. You want to stay in that room, it's going to cost you. And he knows
think
this.
About the people he's around, like he's poor.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
Right.
Because he you know, his belief, and he said this in court one of the times he sued one of those writers. They're like, what's your net worth? And he's just like, well, whatever I feel like on that given day. You know, that's his belief is there's this whole column, if you learn basic accounting, and it's called debt. And you actually have to count the debt in what your net worth is. You can't just look at your assets, which is what, of course, he always does. So all these people that, and there's a million things wrong with all of them, they're horrible, evil people, but actually are real billionaires versus this, you know, this complete chode who thinks he can just count his, you know, he can just count his assets. And so they all know how poor he is too. I mean, and so do, I mean, how many 10, 12 people he wants in his cabinet who are billionaires? They're actually real billionaires.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
I mean, it's the same deal.
And so the problem that he has near the end of the, I'm sure you guys saw this, near the end of the campaign, he was campaigning as Santa Claus. Like he was, not only is everybody going to get everything they want across the board, but it's going to be the biggest, most beautiful, cheapest, easiest, quick, gorgeous, bold, powerful version of it. Even if I don't have what that is, it's going to be amazing. Just come on. Right. Which is the exact same like gold-leafed bullshit sales pitch he used on every building he's ever done. That, you know, and all of them are chintzy as shit and smell like a sewer pipe broke.
Or Trump University or Trump Foundation. Right. He's a con man. I mean, you know.
So I got like from that perspective, how do you pay off that debt? We know he's full of shit. Like none of us are expecting him to do any of the good things. None of us are going, well, he says he's got a healthcare plan concept. It'll be here any day now. Like none of us are doing that. But maggots are. What's the shelf life on that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think what we can learn from the first term is that, first of all, his top shelf promises. We're talking about border, we're talking about immigration, things like that. Everything he tried first term was essentially blocked in the courts.
Don't forget the 2 feet of wall, Bob.
He couldn't get it done. He couldn't get birthright citizenship done. He tried to do that, couldn't get it done. He tried to do that family separation. It happened for a while, and then the courts put a stop to it. So there are some things, the mass deportations, there's going to be issues there in the courts, state by state. I think a lot of governors are going to file suit. Certainly we heard from William Tong, the attorney general in, I believe, Connecticut, who said that he's going to be the first to sue.
Many attorneys general are going to do that, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, he's going to push back against that. So Donald's going to face a lot of problems court-wise with some of his big ticket promises. And then you start to dig down below that to some of the real Santa Claus things in his final couple of months of the campaign. And he's just going to face impediments just structurally on the economy. Any sort of move toward any sort of like, okay, now I'm going to try to implement tariffs against country X, and I'm going to do this now. Even the suggestion of it will wreak havoc with the markets. It'll wreak havoc with prices. Already we've seen corporations pledging that they're going to raise prices in advance of any tariffs being applied. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So, and what we can count on because of that is, and one of the big lessons of this past election is, irrespective of what campaign tactics are used throughout the course of the campaign cycle, the presidential cycle, ultimately shit comes down to the status of the economy. Ultimately, people decided, all right, you know what? I'm pissed off at Joe Biden about prices, so I'm going to stay home. We saw a bunch of Democrats stay home. We saw a bunch of people who voted for Joe Biden last time around, or in 2020, vote for Donald Trump this time around because they were pissed off about prices. Maybe a bunch of them were pissed off about people putting him in their Twitter profile, or, you know, the anti-woke movement. And so there's going to be a real problem there, and that will certainly affect the midterms. And by the way, with regarding to that, I don't want to get too far off on a tangent on this, but when it comes to the existence of a midterms, of course there's going to be midterms because
Yes.
we have federalism in this country. Elections are decentralized. There's not a whole lot Donald Trump and the Republicans can do to stop elections from taking place because they are state-run institutions.
Right.
So along those lines, everyone in the comments was going, oh yeah, midterms, right, Bob? That's not going to happen because we've lost democracy already. Well, if you keep believing that, then we've already lost it.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that this one of the reasons why we have decentralized elections is because of this, because we don't want the federal government controlling carte blanche everything that happens as far as our elections.
Well, and you also
I
have.
just wanted to add that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're going to have elections. If they again, one thing you can always count on, even amongst Republicans, is a rock solid level of selfishness. And there are people. There will always be people in and amongst the American public across the spectrum of politics that are ladder climbers, and they're not interested in Trump world pulling up the ladder after them and only doling it out to their buddies. And they've got enough vested interest to mount an attack on that, either, initially through economic means and then, but they're going to need friends in the trade world. Because if Trump goes through with any of the things he's talking about in terms of, closing the border instantly and kicking every, illegal immigrant out of the country and all that stuff, Texas's entire economy is fucked.
Well, so are a lot of the Midwest, dairy farms, and
right.
I mean, so
but very specifically,
industry.
There's some flexibility politically in the dairy farms in the Midwest and in the swing states, which they will have to deal with later. But Texas itself, as this ideological stronghold of modern conservatism and this emblem, this Austin as the capital of Joe Rogistan, right? That part of it, when that shit hits the fan.
Not to mention Arizona, too, I think.
Right.
Going to be completely screwed by.
Well, Arizona isn't. Arizona is protected by the Biden administration for the next decade because they put 9 chip fabs in there. 2 are run by TSMC. There's going to be a bunch of other ones there, and it will be integral. It'll be
and there's a bunch of Democrats in office there to push back too.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that's who it's going to be an assault on when you do this. What level of success they have with it. But they're going to piss off all of these folks. And you're right. There may be some flexibility in the Midwest, but there's some dairy farmers in parts out here. There's some folks who they're not doing as well as they were doing before. And if they suddenly are looking at half their workforce, 2/3 of their workforce, their costs go way up, they're screwed. Right. I mean, they're already competing with especially some of the guys, medium-sized guys, competing with the huge agribusiness. So the stuff again, we have to look at it the way we always look at this guy. There's what he says and there's what he actually does.
Right.
He'll do the lower form easy stuff, raid some places, throw some people out. He's not organized the military to go into cities. Good luck there. Good luck getting around posse comitatus and not literally having certain generals say, I won't do it. And that kind of thing.
Well, and red states be against it more than anything because MAGA, the deep parts of MAGA are basically people who are edging on sovereign citizen territory where they just have not worked up the nerve to spit in a cop's face at a traffic stop, but they're damn close. And
then you have the different factions too.
Right.
I mean, we just talked about the beginning here. Like the best thing, now that Steve Bannon has fully, in his words, declared war on Elon Musk. Again, you've got the tech bro guys who have the money, and they don't care about the MAGA is just a useful, it's awesome. It's a useful instrument for them to get what they want, which is James Bond evil type crap, living forever and other weird shit that pops into Peter Thiel's, cerebral cortex, which is much more just a sponge. In the end, so you got them, you've got the angry MAGA racist, and some of these overlap to a certain degree, but the angry MAGA racist folks, and they're the ones who got so angry about the H-1B visas because they don't give a crap. They really believe all the stuff Trump's saying about white supremacy and all that. And then throw in the Christian fundamentalists, and, they're not going to like the tech bros because living forever isn't really in God's plan, as I understand it. I'm not a pro here. I'm just a Jew. But I have looked at the New Testament, and I don't see them saying things about living forever. So there's going to be some interesting clashes in
Well,
there.
there is
between
that
all of them, and
everlasting life thing, which is, again, part and parcel to, if you listen to Teal talk, which should be his podcast, and all we
Right.
ever hear from him again is Teal talk. But
Teal Talk.
he's right up there with Jordan Peterson in this kind of neo-fascistic Christian dominance concept, and he believes that things are quite literal, like living forever, everlasting life.
Right.
Is about
That's what his
following,
goal is.
Yeah, that's where he's going. Right now, I'm for outrunning the the LEV is coming, longevity, escape velocity, probably in the next 5 years, and I'm for it for a myriad of reasons. He's not. He's for eugenics and paring the world population down. And this is the part, I think, gentlemen, that, and I want to remind everybody, you're on Cliff. You're on Tuesdays on Bob's show. On the regular, that's the current schedule?
That's correct.
Yep.
That's correct. Tuesdays
Excellent.
on the Bob Seska podcast, we co-host it.
And are you going
better than me,
live?
but
Are
we
you
do
guys
our
doing
thing.
it live, or are you posting it after the fact?
I'm not brave enough for live or video.
I see.
So,
So I
it is
do
audio
my
only
right,
pre-recorded.
so-
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, we do
All
the
right.
pre-recorded with Bob on Tuesday, and I'm trying to get Bob to come back on. I do my live stream on that. I do live Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 2 to 3:30 or 4 on at Cliff's Edge on my YouTube channel. And we have had you on, Hal. We've had Bob on. We had some audio issues when Bob was on, so we're going to find a way to get him back.
Yeah. Well, it's try doing
plan.
video, because maybe that's that's his Achilles heel.
Right.
We're going to mess with Bob to just do videos. Be like, "And we're
Right.
live."
So here's the thing that stands out to me, and this is going to be one of I see Trump rake stomping for the next 2 years until he passes away or ends up in a chair like Admiral Pike, answering questions with red light, green light. By promising everything to everyone, he can't deliver on it. And the stuff he has promised them that they really want, like the massive deportations and all that kind of stuff, are going to have follow-on costs that they're not going to like. We know this. That's what we were talking about all during the campaign. People tended to sweep past this, whatever. But here's the thing that stands out to me. If a Democrat was talking about any of the kind of stuff that Trump is talking about, Alex Jones and all the Elon Musk, freedom warrior, borderline sovereign citizen crowd that is MAGA would blow their stack. They would lose their mind. Yeah. The chips in the brains, the electric car, the guy like Besant being formerly working with Soros, the number of married,
being gay, married with kids. I mean, they love that.
There's like two of them in major positions, and then he's going with Rick Grinnell as a deputy in the intelligence community. All the things
and then there's
that
Indian Americans in a bunch of places, and you and I have talked about that. How that freaks them all the hell out.
They're pissed
The white
about
supremacist
JD
crowd.
Vance still. So
Right, because of his wife.
When does that kick in? When does because right now Alex Jones is basically running as a spokesperson for the RNC. He is completely had a testilectomy performed with a butter knife by by Laura Trump, I guess, at this point. And the idea that this dude, the guy who says he wants to chip 2 billion people, put a chip in their brain, 2 billion people, that's his goal, and he's gonna reach it according to him, is now basically tacitly puppeting the president of the United States, who is doddering and old and obviously dough-headed in a way that they talked about Joe Biden being that way, but Trump absolutely is. Do they wake up to it, or do they just move on to the next blame branch? Because
I think there's going to be a big fight, and I think because there are, again, we have to always remember why we're partially in this, which is the right-wing entertainment complex. And those are people that don't care. They are traitors. They are greedy bastards. They don't care about anything but money, right? So, and fame and whatever else, they're clicks. So if they can attack like Nick Fuentes turning on Trump and attacking him because, again, there are too many Indians. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy and J.D. Vance's wife, and, he started sort of naming their Surgeon General nominee and whatever. So those guys know that they can build their own audiences and make more money by turning on, Trump, particularly on issues when it has to do with stuff you're talking about. The Christian fundamentalists are not going to accept the Rick Grinnells and the Bessents and the people like that, because they just that is pure evil to them,
right?
And they're gonna, and so
but
I
do
think it's going to be out in the open
in.
squabbles and fights like we're seeing right now. I think it starts right away. I think it's already started. And I think it's going to hobble the hell out of them. And it's up to us to message this right, to play up those divisions. It isn't hard when you look at what they made up. The stuff they made up about George Soros is the actual truth about Elon Musk, an unelected, richest guy in the world, not from the United States, who goes in back rooms and makes deals about how your life's going to work out economically. Not hard to discuss these things if we want to discuss it right.
What is, the very people that warned us against unelected, appointed individuals with connections to the military industrial complex or Wall Street or whatever, warning us that about these people becoming those very things, because Doge it's a committee, it's a lobbyist group, it's not a real department. And the fact that they get that through line too, that is, the irony meter has completely crashed. You're going to say something, Bob? Oh
yeah. Well, along the lines of what Cliff was saying, I'm surprised the MAGA entertainment complex hasn't gone after Scott Bessent yet. Because we're talking about an openly gay Democratic contributor who gave money to Al Gore's campaign and so forth. And also, and this is something that cracks me up to no end, for years and years, for as long as Cliff and I have been doing blogging and talking on podcasts and so forth, we've all heard the attacks against liberals about how we're all accepting George Soros checks. Where's my George Soros check this week? Scott Bessent literally received George Soros checks for years and years and years, working for his investment fund. So Scott Bessent, who's the nominee for Secretary of Treasury, hasn't even really, I don't think, arrived on the MAGA radar yet, because if he had, I think they would kind of freak out. Oh, you mean this guy's a George Soros employee or former George Soros employee?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
well, and here's another one. Let me throw in another one when we're talking about the secretive, again, if we want to play this stuff up, we can anytime. He was, I think, the head of, or I have to look up, of the Wolf's Head Society, which doesn't get as much play as Skull and Bones, but is one of those secret societies at Yale. Knock, knock, who's allowed in, that where the secret masters of the universe control the rest of us. Again, this is the crap the right has been selling about Bilderbergers and shit like that for years. And it's the actual truth about who were these secretive right-wing billionaires who are in rooms behind closed doors with other elites like them, who are planning out economies and things. I could sell this message in a heartbeat, and they've already primed their audience for it. Alex Jones has, Tucker Carlson has. So those guys are going to run away. It's hilarious. Tucker Carlson, Swanson, frozen food guy, who actually has a middle name that sounds like an appliance. Hello, Blaine. It's like from Ducky from frickin' what do you call it? Pretty in Pink. That's not a name. That's an appliance. Right? Isn't it Tucker, whatever? Who cares? Point being, there are these very wealthy, very elite types and that are in there. And you're going to have all of the populists running, and they're going to be tossing that message at them. It's our job is to blow that up when they do.
Every time.
And keep repeating it.
And is there also a recognition, and because I know everybody was so mad at Fetterman or even at Joe and Mika, and I have my issues with them going all the way back to 2015 when they platformed Trump in a way that made him seem like a viable candidate. That's when they crossed the Rubicon for me.
My issue with them is they've always been a fraud. Is that they didn't like Trump because he insulted them. Had nothing to do with his politics.
Yeah, exactly. They don't mind his policies per se. So, but there is a smart move to, like Sanders, for example, has said a couple of things like, I would totally support the president in doing, that if he wanted to do it. I think Democrats should seize on, because Trump, again, because he's promised everyone everything. He is such a, rainbow coalition way of speaking about stuff that there's something to grab on for everybody. And that's how that's been his attempt to appeal to everybody. But Democrats can actually play on this and go, well, I completely agree that, this is a concern. Greenland is obviously a concern for us, but that's because of permafrost. If we can mitigate climate change and work to do that, then we can stop the Russians from being able to break through the ice in the first place. Like, there are ways. So I'll support him in setting up a base there, because we need all the information on climate change from that area of the world we can get. Like, there are ways to take what he's doing, because he's laid it out so like blindly and flaccidly in front of everyone. It's just like this. It's like that stupid fast food layout at the White House. Like, he doesn't just get your own, grab whatever you like. The same thing is true of his,
and run, baby.
his politics. And so I'm not, I curiously enough, I have not found myself offended by anybody who is, talking about going down to Mar-a-Lago and meeting with him, any of that stuff, largely because I can see their intentions. I can see what they're doing. And partly the reason why it's so obvious is because he's such a dough-headed old fart that he can't see it coming. So we can talk about it openly, because he's just going to go, they like me. They really like me. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's very easy to play off of all of that and to divide these guys. And frankly, there are Democrats. Timothy Snyder, who writes about fascism, anti-fascism, was proposing we have a shadow cabinet, which I don't know why we've never done here. They do that in the United Kingdom, where you can push out policies. And we should do something of that sort, or state legislatures, places where we can actually push forward. Think about this in terms of marketing and PR, which the Democratic Party never, ever does, which is get it out there, the kinds of things that will divide the rest of MAGA from those elitist assholes. And you can very easily push that stuff out there of like, we are against anybody forcibly putting chips in people's brains like Elon Musk wants to do.
Right.
And let them have it. Let Alex Jones and Bannon and all of them attack Musk and sit back and smoke a cigar and enjoy it.
Well, I mean, again, you're absolutely right. And I think it's one of those things like it's so out there, and they've said it so much that it's just laying there to be criticized or pointed out. Their eugenicist idea of just like, the population should come from a certain group of people and not from others, all that stuff is right there. And if you just draw enough attention to it, there's enough maggots out there who'll go, oh man, he definitely does not mean me. Right? They're going to come to that realization. Yep. Will they vote for us? No. But they might stand down in their kind of blind support for him and for Trump.
Yeah, and I think
some of them to stay home.
Yeah. Well, the economy is one area where I absolutely believe it could turn some of the MAGA, obviously not all of the disciples, but enough to make a difference. And again, it doesn't take a whole lot for some of these people to walk into a grocery store and notice, oh my God, prices are going back up. And so that could be one of the things that breaks apart that coalition. And
Think
it
of it
wouldn't
as
take
MAGA
very long
light
to do that. Yeah.
That's right.
MAGA light or MAGA adjacent. Again, the hardcore 25, 30%, ignore them. We're never going to get them. There are a whole bunch of people that chose him. Yeah, I know Tara's. We got to get out of here. So
yeah, Tara's in the background.
Tara.
She's saying hi to everybody. And yeah,
hello there.
And we'll get to her in just a minute. And by the way, you guys have to check out her book if you don't have it already. And if you don't, we'll get you a copy. I'll make that happen. But Cliff is on Bob's show
for us?
Tuesdays. It's audio only, which is just rude. So much man meat that these liberal ladies like to see.
I love Bob, but I've been working on him to push the video.
It's all ASMR. It's just that's all we get from the two of you.
I'm just an interloper on his show. I don't want to cause trouble.
On the show, I'm just curious, Bob, do you have like a crackling fireplace that you all sit around?
Right.
And,
Bob's got all the good audio sounds on there, man.
Right.
Good Morning Zoo, dude. It's cool.
I'll reach over there, Cliff, and grab us another marshmallow and put it on the stick.
And then suddenly I play a loud radio jingle and freak everyone
and then
out.
Then I could be like the side chick going, hey, you guys are funny.
Yeah, you guys are funny.
You guys are awesome. You're dreamy. And then I yell
There's
about how...
There's always two guys and a side chick on every morning zoo.
Yeah,
That's right.
And I yell about how it's War of the Worlds and we're being attacked by aliens, so everyone can freak the fuck out. You know what I mean? I do that bit.
Look, LibZoo is not a bad idea. I'm just saying. Obviously, I've always, thought of like, that's kind of Steph's business, and she's the only one. So we need a drive time.
Yeah.
We need a drive time
That's
LibZoo You're gonna have to put it together. I'm just saying it's there, and okay, we'll talk. We're gonna make this happen. We're gonna figure it out. Might have to extrapolate it over the rest of the country. Get it, 2 hours of drive time every day wouldn't be a bad plan. And of course, Tara has a history in radio and that kind of stuff.
Yes,
so
she does.
yeah,
Yes,
that might be
she
the
does.
perfect thing. I'm getting brainwave, as they say in the UK. So Bob Cesca,
I'm
always
old enough
fantastic.
that I have a
brother.
history of listening to radios. So.
Bob, you owe me a nerd out at some point in the near future.
Yes.
We've got to have a like just a full blown nerd out outside
You're
of
on.
the realm of politics. Just talking about the very nature of these things. And Cliff and I, we have our own nerd outs in other areas.
We do. If it's
Yeah.
on like rock and roll, we need to all. I mean, if it's on the
Yes, we
Nerd
need a whole
Halen
music show.
type shit.
Yes.
We should do a whole music show with the
I'm
four
telling-
of us 'cause
all
we
right.
all love it so much.
Look at this. We've always been complaining that like there are no like left wing billionaires that want to start like their own media thing. You know what?
Yep.
I'll do it. I'm not a real billionaire, but I played one on
Okay.
TV. So
Yeah.
Wingers, disgusting
anyways,
asshole.
Yep.
everybody, and so it's Bob Cesca's show is on wherever you get your podcast from. Cliff's with him every Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Cliff is live streaming Central Time, 2:30. Correct? Is that what it is?
It's actually 2:00 Eastern, but
Eastern. Okay, that's right, because you're in it's Eastern Cincinnati.
I'm in
I always forget
Cincinnati.
that
You
one.
know the deal. You're
Yeah, I
from
know.
around here.
It
Florence,
seems
y'all.
like it should be Central Time. It just does.
Should be. Like,
It-
no, we should be
just
Central Time here.
assholes.
They just
It's
didn't
like-
want to do it.
Yeah, it's like Arizona and daylight savings. Those pricks.
Like we were watching quickly, like I'll say in 2 seconds, we were watching a football game like last night. It was on the TV, and my son was like, "Why is it already getting dark in Philadelphia? Aren't we in the same time zone?" I'm like, "We are, son. It just makes no sense." And we've,
Right.
we've shoehorned our way into the Eastern time zone here. So
That's right. All right. Well, appreciate you guys coming on. Let's do this again real soon.
See you on Saturday, Hal. I'll see you at the Warner Theater Saturday night.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you will.
See you in
We'll talk about
D.C.
that.
That's right. We'll
Yeah,
talk about that a
right.
bit. That's awesome. All right. Be well, guys. I'm going to bring in Tara
Take care,
now.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Hold on 1 second. I'm bringing in. Come in there and hold on. I've got to put her in the.
I'm still here.
You're fine. You can hang out in the background, just kind of making noise, as it were. But boom,
Yeah,
there's
I should
Tara.
probably go do some stuff. So I'm gonna say goodbye and thank you
Okay.
guys.
All right. Thanks, Cliff. See ya. So I wish I had more show with the guys earlier, but we had audio issues getting them to be able to hear each other. It was a big thing.
Yeah,
And then
no, it's been issue laden this morning. Good morning.
yeah,
Hello.
but it remedied it. We fixed it. We're okay.
Monday.
Yeah.
So first, we have to take care of some housekeeping, bit of business to pump up the big shoe Saturday night at the Warner Theater. So for those who don't know, y'all should be not just signed up for my Substack at towerdublin.substack.com, but you should be signed up for the Political Voices Network Substack, which we are really working on circulating. You can sign up for Substack at different levels. And starting today, I'm going to be regularly contributing to the Political Voices Network Substack. I'm going to be writing. Yay! I'm going to be writing and doing videos. And so all this week, you're going to see me talking to the cavalcade of comedic political geniuses that is the Sexy Liberal Network, and all moving up to, ahead of the show on Saturday at the Warner Theater. So I've already spoken to the delightful Frangela. We had a wonderful chat on Friday. And I think everybody in the Sexy Liberal universe knows that if you listen to Frangela for even just 5 minutes, your day is already so much better, right?
Yes.
And when I started talking to them on Friday, we just had heard the slap on the wrist heard around the world with Trump's, sentencing. And so I wasn't really like, oh, yay, let's talk. Half an hour later, I'm like, let's go. Let's take on the whole world. That's what Frangela does, and that's what Sexy Liberal does, and that's what we're here for. And so...
Agreed.
And then as soon as you and I are done today, I'm going to talk to John, and I'm going to talk to Stephanie soon, and all of that is going to be on the Political Voices Network Substack. But the big deal, Saturday night in D.C. at the Warner Theater, and it's your usual friends, but also you're being joined by George Conway and Olivia Troy and our hero Harry Dunn and our friend JoJo from Jers. And it's going to be sort of like a how are we going to do this kind of mentality, I think, right? And so our responsibility going forward is to keep everybody motivated and keep everybody on an upward trajectory, because the other side wants us to be depressed and disengaged and distracted and disillusioned and disconnected. That's the biggest thing they want, and we're not going to let that happen. So
Nope.
as we're facing, so like, I witnessed what you bring to the Sexy Liberal stage for myself live in person when we were all in Los Angeles in what I'm calling the last good Saturday night. But anyway, this might be the last good Saturday night we have for a long time, which everybody can participate, even if you're not in DC, because you can get the pay-per-view at meethook.live, and that's MEET, meethook.live. So what is it that you're going to bring to this stage on Saturday that's going to make everybody have a fire in their belly for the next 4 years?
Well, I have been the happy clappy liberal for a long time, and that never changes. And I think charting out the bear traps that Donald Trump is marching towards by, running as Santa Claus and then having his own supporters being his biggest detractors. But, again, the idea, maybe a lot of us were like stunned that he won again and all that stuff. But I think even more stunning was the fact that he was talking about primarying Chip Roy within 2 weeks of having won the election again. And trying to get rid of the debt ceiling so that he could get his other spending through, which means he's been sitting around with Republicans and they've said, this is all the money we have. We can't move any further than this. And you could tell in all these meetings when he came out of the one with the senators, he was like, you could tell he's been like, you're fucking kidding me, right? I'm like, no, only about a quarter of the budget is discretionary and it's largely spoken for already. And if we take it away, it's red states are going to get hurt the worst. We know this. This is what we were talking about during the, like, we told you so, asshole. Well, there's a point to which it kind of all goes back to why he ran on getting us out of Afghanistan and never did. Why he punted it to the next term, and then we now know he wouldn't have done it then anyways. Was once he got in there and they showed him that his own people would be against what he was doing, or it would be bad press, or it just, it would endanger whatever else he wanted to do to feather his own nest, then he just didn't do it. Well, the first term, the idea was that everybody believed there was going to be a second term, amongst Maga. They believed he was the second coming. So this is, now that second term is happening. And it's put up or shut up time. He's not going to get a third one. There is no fucking way. He's not going to. It's hard to say this without sounding like you're wishing for it, but that's not what I'm doing. But I don't think he makes it through the whole 4 years physically.
No, I don't think so either. And something I tweeted earlier today was, I think he'll get impeached a third time for something. He can't not commit some sort of criminal act. And I think this time around, if Democrats he did something that was so egregious that it was worthy of being impeached a record third time, I think they would get more Republicans voting with them this time also, because he doesn't have as much support as he would like everyone to believe that he does. He doesn't even have it from within his own. None. And we're seeing people within his own circle turning on each other already. Look at the Steve Bannon going after Elon Musk. So, I mean, that's just a tiny bit of the infighting that we're going to see. And so, it's the game plan of how we're going to react to what they're doing going forward. And you and I talked a little bit about this last Monday in how we're going to hold Democrats accountable, but we're also going to hold Republicans accountable.
Yes.
And so I think what my biggest concern, which is another thing that we've touched on, and I talked about this with Frangela, and I'm going to touch on this with John and Stephanie, is how crucial and critical it's going to be for people like us to continue to get the truth out there once a Project 2025 architect is in charge of the FCC. And so one of my biggest questions is, how are we going to make sure that we're able to continue to get the truth out, and where will the truth be coming from, and what is the source? Because we're seeing so much misinformation and disinformation around the fires in that, and they haven't even taken over yet. So what is your plan, Hal? Because you are such a clear voice, and you never, cotton to bullshit, and you will never, so like, how do we make sure that the truth continues to rise?
Well, there's two things. One is we need to, on a state level, because Democrats control or make up the 5 biggest, most financially viable states in the country. Even so much as I think Dallas has a Democratic mayor. Austin is considered, kind of a liberal hotbed in terms of, socially liberal areas, no matter how Republicans want to twist it some other way. That we have a responsibility on a state and city level to lay out protection lines for the people that are going to be attacked by Trump's federal actions. That's where we have to maintain our strength, and that's where we don't give any ground. That's where we don't get weak-kneed and fearful and go, oh, woe is me, and take to Twitter with the exhaustion language and all that kind of stuff again, because it invites their aggressiveness and it shows, it turns belly up for them. Panicking is another way of complying in advance, and fearing that Trump will even do what he says is one thing.
Which is because he's not lowering your grocery prices.
Right. He's not the idea that he can do these things, but also the idea that when he does them, he's going to get free reign to do it. Like the government is his now. They've got the House and the Senate. Well, they've got it by this much, and they don't. They know whether he does or not. They know they didn't get a mandate. We're just as divided as we were before the election. It tilted one direction or the other, but he didn't win 70-30 like it seems like he thinks, or like Maga thinks he did. And which is, as a sales point nationwide, maybe you can get away with it for a while, but there are senators and Congress people that got to get reelected in areas that were a hair's breadth thin, and they get out over their skis, they're fucked. So they can't comply with what he's doing, and they're Republicans. Democrats can actually give some ground in appearing magnanimous and going, hey, look, they won the election. We'll work with them to get stuff, and we got priorities and stuff. There are certain lines we obviously are not going to cross, but we all care about these issues. And I've been trying to bring up that there are no bipartisan issues, or no partisan issues, beg your pardon. There are only partisan solutions. That some solutions should be bipartisan. They seem kind of, if we need to get cars from one side of the country to the other, you need roads to do it. That's a bipartisan recognition. How you pay for it, whether it's tolls, state money, federal grants, that's where you get into the partisanship, okay? The problem is we have allowed for a long time them to seize the entirety of the issue, and that even talking about it is in and of itself seen as a partisan give to one side or the other. Republicans do it as well. You're not even allowed to talk about certain things because there's no gray area. It's left or right, us or them, up, down, all this kind of binary talk. When in reality, the issue itself isn't. Borders aren't a partisan issue. How you treat asylum seekers versus people who are here and should have visas to work as temporary workers or something, that's where you get into partisan stuff. And if we're afraid to talk about it because they set the terms of the conversation, then we have ceded that ground to the worst of their id. Right? All these issues are worth discussing. They can all be discussed. And the idea is that, especially because Trump has promised everybody everything, there's a Democratic talking point in there somewhere that he has just usurped for the fuck of it. And if you bring it up, his people are going to freak the fuck out. This is what I was talking about with the guys. So what we should do every time somebody turns around and like Sanders or others saying, get rid of the debt ceiling is a great example of that. Democrats everywhere should go, oh, fuck yeah, Trump wants to get rid of the debt ceiling? You kidding me? And I know that people will go, because he's awful, don't give him a fucking inch. Don't allow him to think, okay, but you are setting a bear trap for him when you do that.
Right. And just like he wants paper ballots all of a sudden, which seems weird because you can't cheat if everyone's voting on paper ballots. So it seems weird. Like, it also seems weird that he's maybe okay with the TikTok ban, despite the fact that he loves everything that comes from China. There's so much of a disconnect between what they say and what they do. And so that's why it's our responsibility to use this platform that we have to be shining a light on that, going, not good. This isn't good. This is what we're seeing. Why aren't you seeing it too?
Well, and also, like, anytime somebody's got a hypocritical response to something, that's a gift in a debate and in a political argument or any other argument. The minute they are hypocritical about something, and especially when it comes to Trump, he's so like proudly entrenched in being hypocritical. He'll say bold and powerful and beautiful about something that Republicans hate, that Democrats were for 6 months ago, that he heard from somebody, God knows who, that he's suddenly for. Well, we should seize that every single time. Every time. Democrats in the House, every time Trump presents what's a former Democratic talking point on anything, even if there's this big bill that's a fucking mess, if he presented an infrastructure bill or a Social Security or Medicare, Medicaid bargaining bill or whatever, and 80% of it is obviously written by Mitch McConnell's people and was drafted to be a giveaway to corporations and healthcare, that's definitely going to be true. But there'll be a couple of things in there, because red states are on the receiving end of most federal dollars, that Democrats have been arguing for because we're trying to help poor people and minorities and people who find themselves behind the eight ball. We've been arguing this shit for a long time. That a Democrat could literally go, take that idea, and even if it's not Trump's, it's just in his bill that he's saying must pass, go, we love this idea of Trump's that blah, blah, blah. Even if he didn't put it in there. Jump on it with both fucking feet. Because if he wants it passed, he does want it, so you're not lying, but you're also drawing this contrast between him and the MAGA faithful at every possible chance, because he is giving you the opportunity. He's
and
laying this weapon on the table.
And you're going to be on stage with people who are proud never Trumpers on Saturday night. You're going to be on stage with two Republicans, one who used to work for him, and the other one who used to be married to someone who worked for him. And so you have George Conway and Olivia Troy together on that stage Saturday night at the Warner Theater in DC, which y'all can watch, meethook.live. It's your chance to be able to be a part of the DC Sexy Liberal Show if you can't physically be there. You're on stage with George Conway. What do you want him to be saying to the audience? What are you going to ask him? What is something that you would personally want George Conway to be telling everybody?
I think both
because of his unique, perspective.
I think there's a tendency to kind of Drago from Rocky IV Trump every time he wins or gets some sort of success, where there's a big side, big portion of our side that feels defeated and that he's this kind of inhuman, unstoppable force, that we create a messianic view of him equal to what the maggots buy and sell, right? They believe the sun shines out of his ass and we think it's a death ray, but both are fake. He's fake. He's just he's a bored, easily distracted dipshit. Who
convicted felon.
Right, who has Peter Principled his way into being the first convicted felon ever elected in the United States, who has an increasingly shrinking group of friends, if any at all, is surrounded by sycophants who are waiting to be next in line to knock him off, and he knows it, and he's panicked about it. This nest that Elon Musk built for him, he won't get out of, and he's aware of it. So I think Olivia Troy and George Conway, and I wish more people around them, because we know what he does that's illegal. And we know what the people around him, like Stephen Miller and others, would like to attempt. I know them all. I've read Project 2025. I've read Agenda 47. Even if he hasn't, I know what they're going to try to do. But what I think a lot of people do is they assume that he's some sort of magical force and he will get this stuff done. And I would like to remind everybody that he couldn't even get an infrastructure bill passed, that his tax cut was written by Mitch McConnell's team and had been sitting on Mitch's desk for 10 years. And the only reason Bush 2 didn't pass it was because we were in the middle of a war. And everybody was worried that if you cut taxes that much in the middle of a war, it would undercut defense spending. So they were just panicked about the idea. So think back to what he actually did. 27 miles of new barrier that they created, and by converting the fencing into walls, it made an access road on the Mexican side that made it easier to get around it. It's stupid.
He can't do anything right. It's just
What?
nothing.
Right. Does anybody believe he's actually going to, starting with Texas, broom 1.5 million people out of every restaurant, factory, cleaning, construction,
farm, restaurant,
Right.
hospital, every industrial park, everywhere in
That's
this
right.
country.
And those states, well, not even in this country, because like there are states like New York and California and others that will push back against this and limit him. And he'll be in legal delays around this kind of shit, without the most extreme things. Like if he wants to deport people who are in prison, who are violent criminals, I would like them put in another prison where they're going instead of just dropped off and set free, which seems to be his plan. But besides that, he's not going to be able to go into New York State and do this the way he will, that Texas is going to have to allow him to do, because the Texas elected officials are all in on this shit. They can't not go along with it. What the fuck does that look like? Right? Because in the delay, the maggots are going to want to see something. Where are they going to see it from? States like Texas and Florida. Well, what happens when that occurs? Prices for everything in those states go through the fucking roof.
Hey, we tried to warn them.
Yep.
We tried to explain how tariffs work. We tried to tell them that all of the things that they're trying to do are terrible. And that's why everybody should really be paying attention to what we're doing at Sexy Liberal. So don't forget, as she wraps this up, we are going to be tuned in Saturday night, Warner Theater in DC. You got Stephanie Miller, John Fugelsang, your buddy Hal Sparks, Frangela, Olivia Troy. You've got JoJo from Jers, Harry Dunn, and George Conway. And if you can't be there in person, you can watch at meathook.live. You can order it today. And if watching it live is a little too anxiety producing for you, because I know people sometimes are like, you can save it.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to watch, you know what I would do? I would get the pay-per-view, and then I would watch that instead on Monday, the 20th, instead of the inauguration, because we're all going to boycott the inauguration, the faux inauguration. We're going to make sure that our attention and our dollars and our ratings stuff is elsewhere online and streaming.
Yeah.
So make sure you sign up at meathook.live, and make sure you are following all of the Sexy Liberal Universe folks on all of the socials where they are. And make sure you're also signed up for the Substack, the Political Voices Network Substack, where we're going to keep on delivering the message.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, George can chop all of that up, and then you and I can get back to the business of just talking to the kids in the chat.
I think
kids.
you did masterfully.
Hi,
Ladies and
kids.
gentlemen.
Thank you so much. It's
What a
my
pro.
interview prowess. You know what? I wrote a Substack of mine own this morning before I came on here with you guys. It's an open letter to MSNBC. Because one of the things that you and I keep going back to, and the thing that scares me the most, is the loss of truth. I'm just so scared about it. I'm worried about trustworthy sources being able to say, yes, that's a true story. One of my favorite things that has happened in the last 24 hours is Elon Musk being fucking owned by a firefighter on his own live stream.
Right.
And I don't know why he was there. I don't know why he was in the Palisades. I don't know why he was talking to firefighters. Just because you have money doesn't make you smart. And then he proved it by trying to trap the firefighters in the narrative of something with liberals, or something with the fires, or something with the water, or something with Karen Bass, or whatever. He was trying to trap them so that he could, push his propaganda about how Democrats and DEI and abortion made the fires happen. And instead, the firefighter shut him down with some basic facts about how science works. And my take, and then he shut down the live stream like as soon as he was on, which is thank you for that. And Gavin Newsom tweeting it, and Midas tweeting it, and everybody's tweeting it and sharing it. That is proof for you right there that someone who doesn't understand physics probably shouldn't own a company that builds cars and rockets. That's, maybe. But what it showed everybody in that moment, that emperor also has no clothes. He is the South African Trump. He doesn't know anything. He's a person who tries to sound smart but is not. And when he's not controlling the narrative like he wasn't with that firefighter yesterday, then we really see who he is. That's what MSNBC should be showing. That's what should be the blanket coverage of. These fucking idiots might have $1 billion, but they also don't know how to plug a thing into this to make it work. So and that's our responsibility. That's our response. Like, here's where they fucked up. Here's where the truth is. And and again, all of the tweets or all of the posts or all of the videos or however you communicate, all of those lies doesn't make the truth less true.
Right.
So that's why, like, I'm
point,
re-energized to be back in it, because we are going to be telling the truth as loud as fucking possible.
Right.
And there will come a point where it's undeniable, because it'll show up in, like you were talking about, red states are going to get hit hardest first, like they were with COVID. It's going to be the same shit. I don't understand voting for someone to kill your livelihood. I don't understand voting for your own demise. But again, that's what has happened. And so we're going to be in the I told you so while also trying to keep our own heads above water.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. And so, and I'm ready to do that now. I'm glad I took December to kind of reassess and figure out how I was going to personally get into it. And now I'm ready. I'm ready for it, because I have a basic plan of action, which is I'm never going to stop fighting. How's that sound? Does that sound good to everybody?
Absolutely. Okay, cool. I keep thinking about, like, the Iranian women that have been snatched off the street in Iran for not wearing their headscarves, or the woman who stripped down to her underwear basically and walked through a city square to protest being told to cover herself and all that stuff. And I would like people to keep that in mind while we are dealing with what Trump attempts to do. Are you the woman in the street, unclothed, drawing attention to this, or are you safely behind the wall of Twitter doing this and feeling that exhaustion? There's a distinct difference in those situations, and I feel it's a bit of stolen valor when anybody has, and I will borrow this word, the privilege of not being physically assaulted or being pregnant and having nowhere to go. If you're anything short of that, you have tools and talents and intellect and humor and all these things, because you're not under direct current stress that is not self-inflicted. Because again, worry is weaponized imagination. Somebody else takes your imagination and floods it with awful so that you get paralyzed.
That's right. And this response to the fires is really telling, and it shows who everybody is and how far we have fallen as a nation. Because for 10 years, Vladimir Putin has very, very patiently poisoned our mainstream media. Very patiently. The Russians are incredibly patient when it comes to, carrying out their plans. Right. And it was a slow boil, as we've said repeatedly. And the thing that makes me really sick is that we have human suffering in our country right now. And it's not just the rich people. There are poor, there are middle class and lower income families in Altadena, Black families who lost everything. There are workers who lost everything because it wasn't just houses that went on fire. Schools, businesses, restaurants, everything. It's like Manhattan was obliterated from the planet, is how much destruction. And that there are people who cannot take a step back and look at the human cost, the loss, just the staggering amount of tragedy and trauma. I think about the kids who lived. I've heard videos where the parents are driving and the kids are howling and screaming in terror in the backseat, and it's heartbreaking. Yeah. And that people have just lost their basic senses of humanity. And I would ask any MAGA people who are in the chat right now, I want you to imagine just losing your house in some sort of incident that was beyond your personal control. Something happened. It was struck by lightning. There was a hurricane. It got pulled up in a tornado and thrown. I would never in 1,000 billion years bag on you for living where you lived or the way you lived, because you had just lost everything. Right. It's vile. It's vile. It's inhuman.
It's like the hurricanes.
And it just makes me ill.
Right.
Where's your humanity? Real human American citizens are suffering right now. And what's Elon Musk doing? He's not using his billions of dollars of privilege to help them. He's sitting there like a dipshit, tweeting disinformation to impress his dipshit army of dipshits. That's where we are.
Right.
I want Jeff Bezos emptying his pockets. Taylor Swift has already donated $10 million to the efforts in Southern California. Every single person who has the privilege to do so should be doing that instead of criticizing. You know what? You want to point fingers and yell about how the Democrats do things or Republicans do things or water or physics or fire. This is an unprecedented weather event. There's not enough hydrants. There's not enough water. There's not enough resources, period. No one could have expected this. And it's ridiculous to blame it on anything except what it is, which is a fire that is out of control. And right now, what matters is the human cost and helping other humans. And that you cannot put any of your bullshit aside to help people makes me sick. So if this shaming works on you, great. And if it doesn't, I need you to fucking find your humanity as soon as possible. Because shit like this is going to keep happening.
Right.
Unless we all pull together and create a real community. So if you can't donate money or anything to help them, then it's incumbent upon you to share the sources. Share resources. It doesn't cost you anything to retweet Chef Jose Garces to say this is where World Central Kitchen is set up to help firefighters.
Right.
We are meant to help each other. It's your responsibility as a human to help other humans. And if you can't do it, I don't want to know you. Okay,
Well, and
moving
also-
on.
yeah,
But again, it's about the information and getting the right information out and making sure that we are reaching people at a human level.
Well, we had
That's what we've lost.
44 Republicans in the House voted against fire prevention, specifically in places like California. There's a federal bill to deal with this or whatever and it's the usual suspects, like the hardcore MAGA or MAGA adjacent Boebert and Biggs and that crowd. And the relatively usual suspects in terms of the Senate. I think the only name that surprised me on there was Mitt Romney, although at this point, I don't care, so whatever. I'm sure
nothing
he
does
believes he had another
gonna
reason.
surprise
But like, Kennedy, Mike Lee, and Ron Paul, like those ilk just don't believe the federal government should save states from themselves. And they think that there's a form of passive eugenics that Jesus would have liked. So this is going to be something that I think this is firm ground we have to operate on. And to your point about like fake news and whether or not people will get the right information. One of the things that we have to, at least for the time being, that we benefit from in this messaging circumstance is that they do have the House, the Senate, and the White House. And Democrats don't control one of them, so they could lay the blame at where everything dies on this one thing. And so all the failures that happen are going to be really hard for them to hide from. Now, they will also claim victory on stuff that like must pass stuff from 5 years ago or from the Biden administration that's gone through. He'll be at ribbon cuttings for chip fab factories and shit like that are part of, the rescue package or even, infrastructure projects, that kind of stuff. And it'll be our job to remind everybody where that came from. So I'll be flagging those things for, our side and for the public to know, like, oh, hey, yeah, like the, like I did with the VA Choice Act until I was blue in the face. And I'm sure he'll go back to claiming that he signed it, even though it's the VA Choice Act of 2014. Right? And it was signed by Obama and written by a Republican in Kentucky who Trump does not particularly like or didn't like. And so I don't know. I don't even think he thought as far as not give him credit. I think he just wanted to steal credit on the thing. The point I'm trying to make is
because he takes credit for stuff he doesn't do, and he doesn't take responsibility for the stuff he does do. So
right. And but also to your point about will they get the right information? To some degree, they are painted into a corner, and we have to maximize that impact because they have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They can't lay the blame at somebody else's feet. It's why Trump tried to kill the debt ceiling, because he knows his own Republicans are not going to vote for the increases in spending that he's going to want for himself to feather his nest and those of his buddies. He knows that he's not going to be able to change the rules of banking. He knows the interest rates aren't going to drop magically once he's in office. He can bitch about Jerome Powell, but it's not going to change a fucking thing. And Republicans everywhere, I mean, the fact that he put Bessent in there shows Republicans across the board that any problem he would have with Powell, Bessent is, way farther down that road in caution about lowering interest rates and the like. And again, the guy used to work for George Soros. He's gay. He's married. He's got 2 kids. Like, there's plenty for Trump world to panic about that doesn't involve us at all. So there's a benefit to that. There's a strategic benefit to that you can take advantage of. One is anything he does, and I will repeat this as much as anything he does that even if he's bullshitting, that sounds like a Democratic talking point or something we'd like, like capping insulin, like he's claiming that it was him that capped insulin, right, when it was Biden. Here's the other thing. Your response doesn't even have to be like liar, liar. It can simply be, well, he didn't do that, but here's a list of 5 other medications that he should do if he wants to do it, that's what he's saying, and then you leave it there. Again, part of this argument thing is that we feel like on our side of the aisle, we want to be inclusive, draw everybody in, make sure everybody feels heard, all that kind of stuff, which has value in a group of people that have a shared goal and are working together. If there are disparate goals and people are working apart, that strategy doesn't work. That's why some tribes came up with talking feathers. That's other ones came up with tribal councils. This has been happening as long as human beings have been operating in groups. Somebody's got to have either a hierarchical thing or we got to pass around the talking feather so everybody gets their shot.
Well, I like that you guys were talking about a shadow cabinet towards the end of your conversation. And I'm starting to see some stuff like that. Like, yeah, there needs to be like an organized panel that's like, what are you doing? You're not doing that. Mm-hmm. We're going to do this instead,
right.
And we're going to be continuing to look out for the American people and holding you accountable. I'm totally supportive of something like that. Yeah. Not for the sake of being obstructive, but just to make sure they don't get anything through that's going to make our lives worse. And that seems to be like, for me, that's the objective. And if we're really going to have midterms in 2026, if they're not going to remove the paths to elections or whatever, if we're really going to do that, then what we're doing over the next 18 months or whatever is going to really make an impact, because everything that they do, and we talked about this last week when I was all like, I'm mad at Democrats. And you were like, well, wait a minute. There's a reason they vote the way they do, because they have to vote for their state and they have to make sure their constituents are getting taken care of. But at the same time, we have to make sure that there's other things in the bills that they're voting for that aren't going to be to our detriment.
Right.
And you are the one who are like, you're the one who made me go, be able to focus a little bit better. And I hope that people are really hearing you when you say that. Like, just because a bill is called this, it doesn't mean it doesn't have a bunch of other shit in it. So we have to make sure that we're like going through all of it and not taking anything on its face. Right. And so the fact that you were able to make that, like, that calmed my lizard brain going,
I'm so glad.
That's why we're here, friends. That's why we're
That's what
here.
I'm trying to do.
Listen.
Let me show you how, like, because when these things happen, people tend to react to setbacks in a very predictable way, especially if they're emotionally attached to the outcome or they're already pre-anxious about it. Let me give you an example. Hold on. I apologize if the names aren't right on this real quick. You're not Johnny Million right now, but I will fix that.
No, but I would like $1 million.
He's very,
I would like $1 million.
It's good. It's worth having. So I will.
Succumb to blackmail.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
So did everybody connected to Trump, didn't
sure.
they? But anyway, let's continue.
Yeah, listen, Pete Hegseth succumbed to blackmail. He can't be confirmed to DOD opinion. Okay, that sounds like a talking point from somebody on our side, right? That sounds like something that our side would say, like, as yet another reason why Pete Hegseth doesn't belong anywhere near the fucking DOD. You want to see who wrote it?
And it was who? Yes, please.
Greg fucking Kelly.
Greg Kelly,
Newsmax.
Greg Kelly, who loves Donald Trump more than anything?
Yeah.
Wow. Greg Kelly in his magic pants.
Have
you seen that picture of Greg Kelly with Donald Trump and he's wearing those super tight bugle boys with all the pockets on it?
It's so awful. My God. It's so awful.
It's weird how some of these MAGA people are making a little bit of sense here and there, like Laura Loomer.
They're freaking out because they know Trump. They know Trump is being led around by his nose because he's stupid. The point I would like to make is that this is not just a video that Greg Kelly put out, because I covered when his response, and he got a tongue lashing apparently and dialed it back, and then he went and wrote this. This is from yesterday. Like this
And
is a
is that on the Fox News website or is that
piece.
somewhere else?
No, this is like he's on Newsmax. I don't know where this is on the MSN network. I don't know where the primary.
Wow. So if he wrote that for Newsmax, but it's being syndicated by MSN, that's going everywhere.
Yes.
That's going to be everywhere. That's going to show up in people's Facebook feeds. That's going to show up in places where conservatives are going to see it because it's his name.
So,
and it's powered behind Newsmax. That's interesting.
Like I said, after the election, does anybody think that one of the first things Trump would do is try to get rid of the debt ceiling and primary Chip Roy? What the fuck? And then Greg Kelly is writing anti-Pete Hegseth nomination op-eds. After doing videos about it, he's now writing a full written op-ed. And now, could it be because he's an egomaniac and thinks he should have a role and people should consider him important to the conversation? I don't care. It doesn't matter. It like a broken clock.
He's presenting something that's accurate.
That's right.
And that
even
always
if it's
brings
self-serving,
me back around.
Fuck him.
Right. But it always makes me think, you have a moment like this. You have Jessica Tarlov speaking truth to power on Fox News. I always wonder what happens to the average MAGA brain when someone on their side or their network says something that's truthful, that doesn't make Donald Trump look good.
Right.
How do they process something like that? Because they say that that they believe, this is what they believe. And, Fox News is. So if Fox News is saying this is bad and Greg Kelly is saying this is bad, where does the MAGA person, their loyalty will always go back to Trump. But I'm always curious, like, does it give them pause? Does it make them go, yeah, these things aren't really connecting or adding up for me? I'm just really curious about that because there has to be a point where something that's real gets in here and they go,
yes,
that's not sitting right in here somewhere.
And you can see, they always have these fallbacks. Roseanne has them all the time. Hers is the most overt, which is I don't know what everything. I'm obviously crazy, but blah blah blah. Or like this.
I don't know. It seems that way to me, but
who can
and
say?
then you and I are like, hey, we're over here. We're right, and we're telling you the truth, and we don't want anybody to die.
Well, yeah,
that's what it comes down to. I don't want anybody to die for Trump.
No, but they all have a fallback. They all have this kind of like, well, what do I know? Like Jimmy Dore does this whole like, I'm just a pothead comedian nonsense when he doesn't think that of himself ever. He thinks he's
right. Or when Trump says, I'm just asking questions.
Right.
Because they're not
Tucker
just
Carlson
doing anything.
saying that. Right.
All
exactly.
All of it has a purpose. All of it. And if you're telling me, Tucker Carlson, that abortion has something to do with the fires in Los Angeles, you're a crazy person and nobody should listen to you.
Yeah. He's also,
and it's just what?
I'm curious if you see this as well, because it was like, and I've thought about it more since Musk's biographer came out and talked about his mental health, and that like after hanging out and spending time with him, he sees his current behavior as sort of indicative of a mental health decline. That there is this kind of isolating, self-centered, navel-gazing meets social media tightening circle that happens to certain political figures and celebrities that clearly don't get out much, that clearly are surrounded by sycophants or a solo act, from Randy Quaid to Elon Musk to like James Woods to Ted Nugent, whoever the fuck they are. Like their circle gets smaller. There's a guy, Tom Bilyeu, who has this show on that has had a lot of channel growth over the years, dwindling a little bit comparatively, not growing as fast, but was one of these just kind of like interesting science, kind of almost a generalist philosophy mostly about business. And then at some point, maybe COVID, he got into like Bitcoin is the savior of the world, and then everything just became a reinforcement for that belief system, right? But I see a bunch of these people doing this kind of like singular spiral into like lonely social media, because I hear them parroting stuff. You and I know exactly where they got it from. Like, I know the tweet itself or the post they got it from, or the page, or the person who said it first before it came to them. And it seems like, and I can tell what they're going to say next, which means fuck, they spend more time on their phone dialing this shit than we do. And it's not healthy.
It's like Howard Hughes. It's people who have a big vision and somehow convince people about their big vision, and those people are like, yeah, 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 and then those people are like, wait a minute, your vision isn't actually anything. You're not doing anything, and anybody who's a detractor, they push them away. They get rid of them. Look how Donald Trump gets rid of anybody in his circle who isn't unfailingly loyal and sucking up to him. And so their world gets smaller, their worldview gets smaller. A lot of them don't sleep. A lot of them are on drugs to stay awake and competitive. And they think sleep is for the weak when sleep actually makes you stronger. So they're not sleeping. You make terrible decisions when you're overtired and on drugs. And then the curtain is slowly being lifted on them. And their followers are seeing just who they are. And so they feel like there's fewer people they can trust. They're the only ones who can take care of such and such. And we've seen that repeatedly throughout, business history. I just finished watching Welcome to Chippendales on Hulu because I need to watch shit that has nothing to do with anything.
Sure.
And the guy who ran it, Steve Banerjee, after a while just completely lost the plot. Had no control and lost it. And he was screaming at everybody. He was on cocaine. He was doing all kinds of illegal shit to try to keep his business going. And after a while, he was alone in it because other people had left him. And that's what happens to anybody who tries to control everything. You can't. And so because of that, and when you don't have a competent vision to begin with or a competent infrastructure to support your vision, it's all going to fall apart like a house of cards. And so that's what we're going to see. And maybe, whatever he did with Starlink to get Trump back in office, all of that is going to fall apart because they're never going to be able to deliver on any of their promises. And there will come a point, I have to believe in my heart, and it'll happen when it'll happen individually. When a Maga person all of a sudden can't pay their bills, can't pay their rent, can't buy food, can't buy diapers for their babies, lose their home, lose their car because they're paying 25% more for everything because of tariffs. That is how, they'll eventually finally lose whatever foundation they have left.
Yeah. Elon Musk had that thing like shock to the economic system.
And while you're looking that up, people are, we are a week away from losing TikTok in this country, most likely. And so that's another thing that everyone's freaking out about, because if that can happen, what else can happen to communication? And I would like to be the last viral TikTok author. Just putting that out there, making the sound of settling going viral. The last gasp of TikTok, making something good come out of something bad. That's what we also should be doing for the next 4 years, is just making hay. Make that hay while the sun is not quite shining. But anyway, what were you pulling up about Elon?
I was saying this. There's this quote from Elon Musk where he said that he was during a virtual town hall that he was doing, that Americans will experience, quote, a temporary hardship for long-term prosperity. We have to reduce spending to live within our means, said Musk, who has pitched himself as the director of Doge. He claimed that he would balance the budget immediately, which is just cartoonishly stupid. A lot of people are taking advantage of the government, are going to be upset about that, he said, and we'll probably need a lot of security, but it's got to be done, meaning that's like poor people are going to want to kill him or something. I don't know. Well,
that's the other thing. He has no sense of what an average person does on a day-to-day basis, or how an average person lives. Because what does living within your means mean when you have as much money as he does? What does that mean to him? What standing does he have, and what place is it for him to say to anybody, this is how you should live, this is what you should be spending, this is how you should be doing this, when he's not leading by any kind of an example that's relatable to any other human being? Right. Because he's fucked. He's out of his mind. He's drug addicted somewhere on the spectrum, perhaps mentally ill, propagandist. He's going to have a warrant for his arrest any day now by the ICC. So again, like, he's losing his shit. And so that's why he's like trying to control every last bit of information that he can, because there will come a point sooner rather than later where he won't be able to. Right. And I think that's one of his biggest fears, is losing the ability to control that narrative, which is why he has so many alternative accounts on Twitter, which is why he fucked with the algorithm, which is why he did all of this. Because it wasn't just controlling the narrative about Trump, it was controlling the narrative about himself.
Well, yeah, and he also can't make it on his own. He can't succeed. Every one of his businesses that is successful because of government contracts, period.
Yeah.
SpaceX,
and he doesn't
XAI,
do it.
and
He doesn't
Tesla
build anything.
all
him.
either got loan guarantees from the government or fleet orders or are directly, NASA contracts and the like. The one business he has that doesn't is Twitter, and it's ass. It is all but collapsed. Whatever ad base it had, gone. It is just.
That's how you hit them.
Right.
I mean, that and the meta stuff, like they want us as disconnected as possible, and that's one of the reasons why they're doing what they're doing. And they want us to abandon social media so they can have their echo chamber and keep pushing their lies and whatever. And I think, there's a bunch of different arguments to leave the social media apps, and there are a bunch of arguments to stay. And, I've been saying all along that I'm not going to let Nazis run me out of anywhere. And if it's our responsibility to continue getting the truth out there, then it's our responsibility to kind of stay and fight, because not fighting is giving in. So, and it's up to the individual. You guys do what you want, be where you want, protect yourselves emotionally, protect yourselves physically, do what it is that feels right for you. I'm not going to tell anybody. Your advocacy belongs to you, and the way that you do it is your business. But if you care, then you need to make yourself a little bit uncomfortable. And that's the other thing in this country. Everyone wants to be, I understand being safe. I don't want anyone to be unsafe. There's a difference between being unsafe and being uncomfortable. It's hard to have a difficult conversation. Maybe you're not comfortable picking up a phone and calling your member of Congress. Wherever it is that your comfort zone may be when it comes to politics, if you're listening to this, if you just share this show, that's that's a minimum effort kind of a thing that could have maximum results, because you don't know who you're going to reach. Mm-hmm. It needs to be an effort on everybody's part, but in your own way. So you're going to have people like us we're on the front lines, and we're out here every day going, we're out here. But if you don't want to do that, there are other ways for you to resist that don't require you to have, a public face on it or put yourself in jeopardy. But you need to step outside your comfort zone to acknowledge that we are living in an abnormal time, and it's going to take a special kind of effort to continue to combat what we're going to be facing. And we don't know what we're going to be facing. And so what I'm telling people now is because people are like, how are you doing? What are you doing? We got to be day to day. Wake up every day and go and make an intention for that. Today, I'm not going to let this get past me, or today I'm not going to let anyone get away with this, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And so that's what I'm doing on the Political Voices Substack. That's what I will be doing, after this week, where we're heavily promoting the Sexy Liberal show Saturday night. After that, going forward, it's going to be about making sure we are cutting through all of the bullshit. And so, I promise to do that and always deliver the truth, and I know you do. And I want everyone to know that this will continue to be a destination for everybody when it gets crazy and ridiculous out there. It's like the blizzard's out there, but it's nice and warm in here. And we're going to give you some cocoa, and it's going to be fine. We're all going to get through it together. And I know it's scarier than last time because of what we know, but it's also going to be easier to fight than last time because of what we know.
Right.
And these are all of the things that I have been, working on me to stay emotionally healthy during these next 4 years. And one of the things that I talked about with Frangela that you'll see in the video on the Political Voices Network, they are very, very adamant that nobody is stealing our joy. Nobody. Yeah. And that going forward, what we have, what makes us us, they can't take our soul. They can't take our joy. They can't take our love. They can't take away our relationships. They can't take away our talent. They can't take away our ability to be human and connect with each other. And the best thing that we can do is really be a true community that supports each other to the best of our ability every single day. Whether it's blowing up my book so that I can enjoy a livelihood that I have been pursuing for years. You can buy my book at TaraDublinRocks.com. You can read all of my writings. You can do a paid subscription to my Substack. You can send me a couple of bucks on Venmo to buy me a cup of coffee in this certain time. I don't know where my freelance life is ever going to take me. But what I do know is that I'm staying put and I'm not going anywhere. And neither are you, and neither is Stephanie, neither is John, and neither is
That's right.
Frangela. And this tour might be wrapping up, but in no way is Sexy Liberal going away. And
Yeah, see, I
when
think we gotta.
you know,
I
we
think
got our
it's more
drive
important than
time
ever.
shit. You want me on the radio? I was queen of the midday, and I
Yeah.
anchored that midday here in Portland. So you get your morning drive with Stephanie. Maybe you get me on the midday. Someone else does drive time. But like bringing Air America back is what Stephanie has sort of done with Sexy Liberal. But if
Yep.
we had a serious network, if we had a serious channel,
Yep.
you know, like Dean is on Sirius Progressive. If there was a serious network for us, if there was a radio station for us that could reach Americans, where we could talk about music, we could have musicians on, we could talk about lots of things. I think that would give everybody like a nice destination and a respite from everything. Like it could be politics, but also other things. And so.
Right.
Connect with other humans. The best piece of advice that I heard through this time was don't isolate yourself. It's so easy. I am so guilty of it. I cannot even tell you how many hours I have spent sitting in here with my cats going, no, the world does not exist. Yes, it does. And ignoring it and being an ostrich doesn't really do anything. And so I know it'll be hard to stay optimistic, and I know you're going to get tired, and it's okay to get tired, and it's okay to take care of yourself. The rest of us will be here. So going forward,
I believe God is in other people, and so we experience
be good to each other.
We experience the divine through everyone else we encounter, for better or worse.
That's right.
And so
that's right. And so be supportive.
Yeah.
Be human. Remember who you are as a human being, and do your best every single day to connect with other human beings at a human level, and that is how we will get through.
Yeah.
Because at the heart of it, like I want to believe that the good guys, we may have setbacks, but good guys eventually rise.
Yep.
And we all find each other. The good people find each other, and the goodness will prevail. I have to believe that. You know, this culture of mean that we've been living in for the last decade, I think a lot of people are tired of it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are going to push back. And that's what I want for everybody. So
it also won't work with our side either.
Yep.
I think that's the thing too, is that we have a responsibility to move back to a space of good humor and relaxing into reality, instead of being allowing sort of people's fear and anxiety or their own kind of depressive nodes about, or their own personal nihilism about the worth of life, to override the communication. If you really care about these things, what you really care about is living. And you want people to be able to live freely and happily. You want as much joy as possible. And the idea isn't to clamp down on all the problems first, like you're suturing busted veins, you know, all the time, because it's the wrong tool for the job.
Right. And they want us living at that level, and they
do.
want us feeling like anxiety all the time. They want us living at threat level midnight, and because they want us to be skittish so that every noise freaks us out.
And by the way, they want
And
us
that
to
can't
be
be the way we
prudish
live.
They want us to be prudish neo-Victorians with no sense of humor, who are afraid, you know, are pearl clutching and easily offended snowflakes and all that kind of stuff. They sell on our behalf and on behalf of other people, and it just doesn't work, because what it does is it comes across as mean and dismissive. It assumes the worst, and a lot of times, and we know this with Trump in that crowd, they are always projecting, and and we know this about them. But in that projection, they also believe, everybody believes people do what they do. So even if they won't admit that they're projecting all the time, they assume that's what you're doing. So if you fight racism to them, they're assuming that you're racist and you're trying to cover your own guilt, because that's how they do it.
That's what they are doing. Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
And they will always project it
not
instead
who we
of
are.
right. And if you're you know, like if you're church lady about it, they will assume your tendencies and beliefs are worse than theirs are, and that's why they can write you off. And then the rest of their job is just to get you to panic and feel like shit, so you'll freeze and not do anything. And TYT and all these crowds did everything they could to paralyze our side, make it no fun, angry, depressive. You know, and it's not going to work. I'm not going to let it happen.
No,
this is
it's
not
not.
how I
And
operate.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let it happen. The good people in Sexy Liberal are there because they're good people,
Right.
and they're smart people, and they're good role models for people to emulate in how they move through the world. And because I mean,
try.
you got everybody motivated to go over to Blue Sky and start being nice to each other and to sign up for my YouTube. And
That's right.
I am by the way, I'm 27 copies away from 1,000.
There we go.
27
Come on,
away
people.
from 1,000. So that's
TerraDublinRocks.com. Right.
Let's go. Let's make
Yeah.
beautiful things happen for each other, because
Right.
look at history. Periods of history where there was an oppressive government in place. The creatives are the ones who rose up in the moment to make it bearable for everyone else.
Right.
And so in the next 4 years, it's creativity, it's creating joy, it's connecting
Mm-hmm.
through music, movies, art, everything.
And
Everything that's
not letting
beautiful
them-
that makes you feel good.
Yes, and specifically
things.
not
Do
letting
good
them
things.
hijack your good traits. They don't get to hijack your
Nope.
empathy. They don't get to hijack your happiness, and giving that over to them it is a form of losing on purpose. It
Correct.
is ceding ground to them
And
they
that's
have not
giving in.
earned.
They don't get
So-
my heart.
Nope.
They don't get this.
Right.
They don't get my body. They don't get me. They will never have me. Ever. There is nothing anyone can do to make me sell out my party or my country
Right.
or my friends or my family.
Yeah, it's
my
silly.
bank account could have negative $1 billion in it, and I still would never capitulate to fascism. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm here. Hal is here. Frangela,
Yep.
John, and Stephanie are here. Make sure you're tuned into the show Saturday night on meathook.live, because it is going to lift you.
Yeah, it'll be great.
It is. As someone who was physically in the room with all of them the Saturday night before the election, the joy in that room. And what I said that night was, if I could harness the energy in that room the same way if I could have harnessed everything we did at the DNC, it would have been a landslide. So going forward, we're just going to
Right.
do that. And it has to be like, you're allowed to take breaks, but when you take a break, make sure you have some ice cream. Okay?
That's right.
Just
Take
be
care of
good.
yourself
Be
and
good
take care
to
of
each
somebody
other,
else.
and it's easy to be optimistic on a Monday morning. So, and by the way, my week is ending with a colonoscopy. So do not tell me that
Sure.
I can't rise above when I'm literally going to have a shitty week.
Rise
So-
below.
Okay,
Uh,
everybody, I love
all right.
you. I'm here for you. Take care of each other. Be good to each other. And just, you know what? Pay the joy forward.
Right.
Do that.
Awesome.
Do that today.
All right,
And
love you,
by the way,
Tara.
Hal,
Yeah.
what you have to do, by the way, today is you have to grab the time that we spoke about the Sexy Liberal show and send it to George.
Okay.
Can you do that? Can you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Because that's going to go on the Political Voices Substack. Okay,
Okay.
guys.
Awesome.
Take care of yourself. See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. There she goes. Ladies and gentlemen, and there go I. We went over a little bit. Check out our book at TerraDublinRocks.com. You guys are awesome. I will see you this afternoon. My throat is hot from talking, ironically enough. It has been a very busy morning. And I will see you this afternoon. Fine. I'll talk more next time. I promise.